evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Shine.com, India's leading job portal, we welcome you all to the 14th Hindustan Times Shine HR Conclave, the Bengaluru chapter. After a series of 13 conclaves across Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad and Chennai, it feels great to be back in Bangalore and present our 14th edition. Today, technology has simplified complex business processes and enabled more effective communication and collaboration. A giant corporation can now be as nimble as a tiny startup, while a family firm located in a remote village now has the world as its marketplace. The advent of technology has truly resulted in making the world a smaller place, and the recent surge in high-tech communications has hastened the process. As a result, organizations are shifting their center of gravity to seek new growth opportunities in emerging markets and expand to become truly global. As markets turn increasingly global, the war for talent is being fought locally. HR, who's in the forefront of this talent war, must give new impetus to the organization to enable it to compete on a global scale, even while it functions at a local level. Leading organizations and their CHROs are realizing the need to think and act both globally and locally in highly integrated ways. Hence, the need for new HR models and organizational design. In this context, the 14th Shine HR Conclave seeks to throw open the debate on how HR can drive the strategy in managing a global company's manpower. Therefore, the theme for today's conclave is Global Market, Local Talent. To kick off today's discussion, I would now like to invite today's panelists. May I now invite Amitava Saha, Head of HR, Biocon. Amitava has more than 17 years of experience, of which about 13 years are in HR. He started his professional career in sales and marketing with Coats Viela PLC. He moved into HR with Infosys, handling various talent acquisition responsibilities, followed by managing HR for the global sales force of the company. Prior to joining Biocon, Amitava was leading talent acquisition and HR for the APAC business of FirstSource Solutions. He has also worked in Dubai with Mashreq Bank, managing HR for the corporate entity. I now invite Arpana S. Mehra, Vice President HR APAC for ACS, a Xerox company. Arpana is responsible for ACS's HR function in India and Asia Pacific. With a total experience of 17 years, she has been with ACS since 2003 and joined as the HR leader for India. Later, Asia Pacific was added to her responsibility. Prior to joining ACS, Arpana was working in the United States and has had successful stints at Ernst & Young, Satyam Infoway, and STG International. Arpana was featured in the 2010 Diversity Journal as one of the women worth watching, nominated by Laura Villarreal, Chief People Officer, ACS. May I now invite Manoj Biswas, Managing Director HR for Accenture India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Manoj has been with Accenture since 2007 and has been instrumental in the growth of Accenture India BPO as their HR head and also as capability development lead. His career, interestingly, started in the Indian Armed Forces as a major in the Artillery Regiment, and he has performed various operational roles, including operations in Punjab and Siachen. His corporate career spans 18 years, and he has worked with several teams to successfully develop IT products in the US. After moving back to India, he has done several HR roles in organizations like Wipro and IBM prior to his stint with Accenture. May I now invite N. Prasad Menon, Director, HR and CSR, McAfee Software India Private Limited. Prasad has been with McAfee for over 8 years and is a part of their executive leadership team. His key accountability is to attract the best talent and continually build a cherished culture where the talent is not just engaged, but curiously engaged. A mechanical engineer by education, Prasad is in the pursuit of engineering people solutions as a profession and is an aspirational farmer by passion. He has over 16 years of experience in HR, including international assignments spanning manufacturing, consulting, and ITS industry sectors. Prior to joining McAfee, he was leading the HR function for Aviva 24/7. May I now invite the moderator for today's discussion, Balachandar N., Group Director HR, Fide Group. Balachandar is the Group Director, Human Resource for the fast-growing Fide Group and has been responsible for its people strategy and execution. He has rich experience across multiple industries, having worked in companies like GE Money, Strides Arcolab, Standard Chartered Bank, Aon Hewitt, GE Healthcare, and Asian Paints. A graduate from IT Madras, Bala is an expert in HR systems and process design, leadership, staffing and development, integrations, and turnarounds. Bala, I would request you to take over now. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening and welcome for this evening. It's great to have a full house. Feels good. I hope you get something interesting out of today's deliberations. I'm sure the food this evening is going to be great. We are at ITC, and what better place to meet for great food. However, I'm going to throw this question back to you guys before we initiate something this side. What is it that you want to take out of this evening? Between now and dinner, we have an hour and a half to 2 hours. And when we all in HR talk about engagement, right, how better to use this opportunity to engage you guys? What is it that you would like to take back home? What would you like to mull over? What would you like to think about? What is that new perspective that you are trying to seek? Is something that we as panel members would like to know before we kickstart our deliberations. I'm sure like Apple, which is a product that many of us don't know what we want, and then they present it to you, a great product, and then you get used to that great product. So you will hear some pearls of wisdom from the 4 members on my panel here, which will be something like Apple, something new that you've not heard, that could tickle your senses. But before we start, we want to hear from you. So over to you, maybe next 5 minutes, 7 minutes. We like to hear from you a very crisp one-liner on what are your expectations from this evening?
How equipped are our young managers? I would like to hear from the panel members.
And you'd like to know how my friends here drive that within their own firms, maybe? Yeah? Some insights into how they do it?
Some insights into, removing those biases about no gray hair or no hair at all kind of a thing. So,
if the managers figured it all out, HR wouldn't have a job.
and that's exactly the problem. I thought HR rested with the managers.
Got it. Nice start. Yes, guys, over to you. I'm sure you didn't expect this, right?
There's a question here.
Yep.
Today it's not just about getting the best of talent to join you. It's about retaining them. And today, gone are the days we said compensation or something can, kind of attract talent. So it's more about how creative we could be, about, retaining people beyond the comp and pack, and what creative things we could do, what new things that we can kind of explore to attract talent and motivate them to stay on and grow.
We wish we had all the answers.
Yeah, we have someone here.
Yes, please.
HR to IR, the approach. I would like to know from you, the HR gurus.
HR to, sorry, could you repeat your question?
HR to IR.
HR to IR, okay.
Yeah.
You're saying it's going back to IR days?
IR to HR, whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
HR to IR or IR to HR, the
Okay.
approach.
I think IR will come back someday soon.
Hi, good evening. My question is in continuation with that lady sitting there. Today's younger generation, with due respect to younger generation available here, they expect instant materialistic benefit. There is little room, I can see hard work can be executed from the younger generation. So in this situation, employee retention becomes a big challenge for HR. So how we can overcome this kind of problem? Mainly, I'm telling in the context, for example, in my own company, what had happened, I have implemented one retention policy. Policy, of course, there are certain conditions. There, it's very clear that if you serve for 5 years, at the end of 5 years, this is your career plan. This is the amount of material benefit you are going to get. But person who is sitting in front of me, young man, says, tell me what is that I'm going to get next month. This is the challenge.
Yeah.
Got it.
My name is Manavi, and my question is from a talent perspective. We have a dearth of talent at the top level. So when we talk about succession planning, the names there are very less that you can fill in. At the same time, you have very aspiring employees, and employees are ready to get out and get the positions that they want higher up. So what's the lever that HR is not pressing that these two are not able to meet? So what is it that we need to do differently to make sure that we bridge that gap that's right now hugely there?
Sure. How do you fast track and how do you bridge the gaps in talent?
Hello. My name is Dr. Bagli from Jain University. I want to know, today we know that every other person is engaged. I want to know how this local talent, the role of an HR to make them go crazy at global market. How can we create a workplace where people go crazy daily rather than engaged?
How do you ensure that the local talent goes crazy on the global marketplace?
At the global market and compete with the global,
These guys came up with some preparation. I think you guys are turning it upside down.
Hi, myself Manoj Kumar. I just want to add something what Jagdish said. Rather from pay and perquisites to career or job to career, what could be the motivation or aspirations for a young workforce to stay in an organization? Because typically Indian concept, 2 to 3 years you work in an organization and look for a change.
Yeah.
Rather than a sprint, let us have a marathon to stay in the company, not only looking only at the pay and perquisites, but on a career aspirations.
Sure.
What could be the challenges and how can we motivate these young folks?
I think a lot of questions around how do I bridge the gap? How do I motivate young workforce? How do I reward and recognize and keep them back for longer while, if not 3 months, can I keep them for 6 months? Are you discussing months or years here? Yeah? Okay. So I think broadly, that's the theme that I'm getting to hear from you. Any last questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many of
them.
them.
Yeah. Way back.
Okay, the lady at the back.
Finally got the mic.
The disadvantage of being at the back.
Yeah, still got the attention though. Well, today if we have to really look at the business and the aspirations, business will not change that fast. Growth will not come that fast. Mm-hmm. How do we have our younger generation hold that patience to really look and wait for it? Fast track is what all of us are talking, but business is not really requiring somebody to be moving in 18 months' time. And consistent performance is something that we really look forward for. How do we engage our Gen Y to really have that patience?
Sure.
That will be something good to understand.
Slower growth, yeah? How do you manage a high aspirational workforce when the environment is not, not growing as fast as it should? Great, yes, please.
Hi, good evening to all of you. So my question is, on one end we say retention and we do all sorts to retain employees. But on the other end, we look for talent. Is the talent, outside talent are smart, or we should grow in-house? So if somebody can throw something on this, it will be great.
Internal talent versus
internal versus external.
Grooming internal talent versus looking at...
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
My name is Honey.
Yes, please.
Am I audible?
Yep.
Yeah, I am Lalit Chaturvedi from Bosch Limited. My question is, how do we build local leaders? Meaning local leaders who can really demonstrate competencies which can match at a global level.
Okay. So all around development of people and bridging the gap and global.
Thank you.
I think the lady is taking the mic here.
Both of us can use this. So I had a question on diversity and how do we insist or mandate diversity, and whether Indian organizations are really keen in using the value of diversity?
49% of the population is women.
Yeah.
My name is Arvind Rao. I'm director of HRD at one of the engineering colleges, HKBK College of Engineering. So, since I come from an academic setup, my question is a little different from what the corporates are asking. My question is, it is becoming increasingly difficult to attract good companies to the colleges. I'm not talking about the excellent colleges, I'm talking about ordinary colleges. I think there are more ordinary people in the world than extraordinary, right? So we need to make opportunities available for the ordinary people if the country has to progress. Okay, it's good. Excellence keeps on becoming more and more excellent, that is good. But it doesn't bring the bottom line up. So my challenge is, what is it that companies are looking for in colleges, and how can we attract some of the good companies to come to the colleges and have a more inclusive kind of a policy? Today, companies are visiting the premier institutions, right? It is very exclusive. Everyone is talking about inclusivity, but the more we talk about inclusivity, the more we are becoming exclusive. This is what I feel. So I would just like to throw some light on these things.
No, very valid, very valid. Thank you so much for that question.
And in the previous question, when you said diversity, I understand you were talking about gender diversity, right? Okay.
Specifically, yeah. I think the last two questions, if you don't mind.
Good
Lady
evening,
there.
Yeah, hi, this is Kanika from Aditi Technologies. My question is regarding the business requirements. They are generally very different from what HR is trying to do. So our purpose is to engage with people and have initiatives that will retain people. But business generally doesn't have that much of time. So how do we bridge the gap between the business requirements and our initiatives? So what can be traded off or what can be kept in mind?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
This is Ramaswamy. In fact, by my experience, what I have handled, the youngsters nowadays, they join the organization, they expect quick changes, quick growth, and also in the meanwhile, they don't have a full learning process in the situation, and see that they jump, they want a pay increase, everything. But the learning is very, very less. So in that case, how to motivate them and see that retain them and make them learn the process so that they can take care of the future responsibilities as corporate people in the years ahead. That's what I expect.
Got it. Yep. Thank you. I think we may have to start. There was one lady right behind the cameras. Right?
So hi, my name is Hani Rai. I want to know a distinct way of influence of culture on a career path. That's a career or a cultural value. So person choosing to work to leave or leaves to work. So that's a variance of culture I would like to know.
I didn't get that.
Variance of culture of an organization or culture of retention versus staying in the organization versus looking outside. What
career path.
Is it the organizational culture that you talked about?
Yeah.
Okay.
The culture on a career path. So this I would like to know.
Culture on career paths. Okay. Impact of culture on career paths.
Earn to live and live to work. Is that your
Yes.
tagline? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I think.
Yep. Hello. Let's get started. I'm sure you'll get enough opportunities. We'll flip it over again after some time and get some questions going soon. So there are enough and more challenges as we see ahead in terms of growth opportunities for the economy, the companies, organizations. Over the last 4 or 5 days, I've been traveling quite a bit across the country and talking to very senior business leaders, senior HR directors in the country. And increasingly, I'm hearing that it's a sort of a gloomy days ahead. Everyone is saying that one action of the elections will determine where we are headed. Now, you and I don't determine exactly that result today. Maybe we do as we vote for different parties. But to just focus on today for this evening, I'd like to start with Aparna. She's on the extreme right, and she runs a firm called Xerox. And not many of you know that Xerox has over 10,000 people working on the services business that they have. And they're very late entrant into the market. While you have an IBM and Accenture and several others here in the country for many, many years, employing lakhs of people, in India, they have about 10,000 people. They're very late entrants, and they have very ambitious plans. And therefore, the ability to attract talent or even to retain that talent from a brand perspective, from the nature of work that they do, is a challenge that she's going through every day. So I'm going to ask her, how does she manage? What makes her get out of bed every morning? And what are some of these challenges, and how do you deal with them?
Very challenging question for anybody who's working in Xerox at this point of time. We are going through a major transformation of, as Bala said, we are late entrants, and how do we now gear us up on? So what is typically happening in our world, we are not running behind hiring talent. I think that's a passé statement for an organization like Xerox. We are now very, with full efforts, working on creating talent within the organization. And I think that's two different streams in which the industry is working today, either hiring or creating. Why we are not hiring? Because most of our competitors or most of the large organizations are hiring today. Why are we creating? Because the needs are very specific. The Xerox brand, which is a very well-known brand, but how well-known is it into the services organization, especially in a country like India, is another challenge, is another factor for us. What are we doing to create the talent within the organization? I think that's another aspect that needs to be looked into. So we are working on our young managers. Somebody asked that question, and I would try to answer that question within how I'm explaining what Xerox is doing. And I think one liner to that would be, are our managers equipped today to deal with the responsibilities that they have given? And my answer to that would be, the way we are equipping our children to become adults in this society is a similar answer for how we are going to equip our young talent to become managers, which means the process is very evolutionary. The process is where we have to empower. The process is where we have to let them come forward, commit mistakes, and learn from them. You don't have business schools which are creating managers. Very few, and it really doesn't happen in a very practical situation. It's all happening while somebody is working. So I hope in some way I have answered the first question which came up of how equipped is young talent to become managers within the organization. Empower them, let them move forward, give them the voluntary reins to come ahead, and let them commit mistakes. Everybody learns from it. Coming back to the Xerox organization, the talent pool that we are trying to create is not by hiring freshers. So that's definitely one aspect of it, but that's not what we are focusing on. The focus is very holistic. So one part of it is to bring the young, fresh talent right from the colleges, right from the campuses. The other aspect is the already existing pool that we have. How are we taking them to the next level to make them ready for the double-digit number that we are looking at in the next 12 months for Xerox to acquire? So if we are 10,000 today, I can tell you in 2015 mid, we are looking at being 20, 25,000. That's a large pool. Where is that pool going to come from? I am not saying that most positions are going to hire, probably at the bottom level, but most positions are going to get created there. Most talent is going to get created there while we are going to build our managers, while we are going to home grow our leaders, while we are going to home grow our executives. So Bala, in a nutshell, that's how...
I'm going to be an Arnab here and interject.
Sure.
How do you guys do that? what is it that you do in-house to hone the skills of young managers?
So like any other organization, yes, it's all about, a lot of training programs that they are put into, but is that sustainable? I mean, if you're walking out of the training programs, do you become the next level manager, or do you become the next level generation pool that we are looking at? The answer is partly yes, partly no. What we are typically doing in our set of businesses, while we start evaluating my top 20, my top 30 ranking, my top 40 ranking, and we have classifications down to top 80, top 90 also. It's all about retention after all. We have started putting them to work into that next level already, right? What is happening while we are putting them to the work to next level is they are learning. Yes, there are issues that we are facing. There are challenges, I would say, that we are facing. But then the organization, the leadership, the HR, and a lot of other shared services, the capabilities that we are building is coming forward to handhold that talent to become more capable. And I think a lot of large organizations who are actually wanting to move into doubling their numbers, probably it's going to have a very similar strategy. We don't have a magic wand where we are going to be creating talent within. So it's just let them be working, continuously keep holding them, continuously keep providing them with the right tools so that they're moving to the next level. And that's typically what Xerox is doing today.
Yeah, and you said that the leaders help them grow up. What are some conversations that you as an HR head have with leaders, especially around grooming younger workforce?
Empowerment, Bala. What we see, at least in our organization, that we start hiring or we start putting our talent into responsible positions, but we don't empower them, right? And when we don't empower our talent, and empowerment could be even as to a job level, which is nothing but a transaction processing. But is that talent?
How do you measure empowerment?
So I think measurement is very subjective. There is no tool that has been developed, right, where we are measuring empowerment. But what we are doing today is definitely letting them go and take decisions. Take decisions on the floor. Take decisions on the work that you're doing. If you are interacting with a client, try taking sound decisions. And we are equipping them with the tools. We are equipping them with the material. We are equipping them with the culture to take decisions. Come back, ask, but take decisions.
Sure.
And I think that's what is definitely going to help us to take our talent into the next steps.
Great. So I'll let her be at peace for a few minutes and shift to my friend here on the left, Manoj. Similar business, but 10 times more. Scale, complexity, 100,000 plus people is not an easy task for an HR head. So Manoj, what makes you get out of bed and come to work?
Interesting, when I was hearing you talk about some of the things, whether you talk about a larger organization or a smaller or simpler one, as an HR person, I think, the complexities of the business, the talent that you are looking at, specifically if you are into a services business where you are dealing with people every day, I think, the interesting challenges that any HR person would talk about would be very, very similar. To add to a couple of these dimensions, I think, somebody asked about the generation question, and somebody asked about, so what are the retention strategies that you do, etc. So, coming from our, talking about the IT industry and the outsourcing services industry perspective, because that's what we will talk about. About a decade back, I think all of us were in the same boat, talking about this huge war for talent that India is going through. I think the war for talent is over. Talent is won. So that piece is done. What we need to see is the next context of how you are able to groom the talent, how you are able to have an end-to-end, while everybody talked about it, I'm sure everybody is doing different things. I think what is important is, do you have an end-to-end talent management strategy in your organization? And when I say that, let me try and explain. Do you have an entry-level talent criteria. How do you engage with entry-level talent? What are the types of entry-level talent that you organize? And somebody talked about the changing paradigm of the business, whether we like it or not. The IT industry in India is talking about going up the V model. So whilst, when we started our journey in India doing in the IT, application management, and in the BPO we started doing the base level, Gen 1, Gen 2 kind of BPO. I think everybody today is doing 4th gen, 5th gen kind of BPO. Similarly, IT is looking to migrate towards more product, doing more sophisticated work and going up the V model. So hence, the entry-level criteria for your organization is consistently changing. What is your strategy? Because the university has 3 different models. You could have an IT, IIT kind of a model, which is the V model reversed, right? You have a narrow intake, and then you have a wider, output out of it. Or you could have what a chartered accountant industry does. They have a wider V, but a narrow outflow out of it. Or what the other larger universities are doing, which has a wider mouth at the entry gate and a wider mouth outside, right? So I think, what are we doing in terms of engaging with the university, to answer your question, in terms of whether it's in terms of engaging with the next generation or coming up with the next generation of talent needs. When we talk about to say, now we are getting into a digital space, let's be very, very upfront about and look at our curriculum. Is it really catering to get the next generation of talent out which is digitally prepared? So how are we engaging? What's our engagement model with the universities, or even with the with the government? For example, NSDC is doing some work around coming up with the skill in various domains. So I think that's one piece. The second piece is, which you talked about, is how do you develop your first-line supervisors, managers, etc. And it's a culmination of learning and skilling, training. Training essentially is about, this is what I require, this is what the organization needs, and hence this is the skill that I need to build. Learning is much more self-directed. What does the person want to do in his or her next role? And hence, what's the learning agenda? So what's the strategy around it? How do you enable that? That's the second piece. And if you're able to kind of do the first and second piece well, then of course it also helps in retaining. The third piece that we have to understand is, we keep on talking about attrition. It's the most beaten word, specifically in the industry that I come from. Every day you look at a number and say, oh, it's gone up a couple of percentages, or it's gone down a couple of percentage. Let's understand that all the IT organizations and the BPO organizations have a pyramid which is very broad, a very broad base. So attrition in such a broad base organization is not a bad word. You have to see what is required in the organization to be taken up, because you cannot take up everybody from bottom of the pyramid to the top. So you will lose people out of the way. But is your end-to-end talent management strategy making sure that even the exit that happens is a good process? So I think it's a culmination of that we look at. And if organizations who have an end-to-end talent strategy are able to implement it in a very sound manner, then they are the winners. For example, let me state about from an Accenture standpoint. Everybody who comes into Accenture and logs on to something called as Career Explorer. So if Manoj Biswas logs on, he or she sees that this is where I am today, this is my role, and these are possible 3 or 4 different roles in the organization that I could do. And mind it could be just a parallel role. It's not a promotion. It's just an enlargement of my responsibility, etc. But I have the freedom to choose, and that's the piece that you're talking about, to say how do you measure it. So you have a freedom to choose to say, out of these 3 areas, that's the one that I want to do. And when I go and select that and put that as my short list, it tells me that these are the competencies that I need to build from where I stand today. These are the resources which are available, which is the learning piece. And these are the skills that I need to develop, which is the training piece. Until and unless you kind of give that flexibility and develop that, then your talent strategy or talent development strategy that somebody was asking of how do you develop is meaningless. The other thing that we do very well in Accenture is we break down some of these paradigms. We think that a manager to us is somebody who has 12 years of experience or 15 years of experience, has done XYZ, has stayed with the organization and so and so. So those paradigms in our mind needs to change. I always believe that if you have in the organization somebody who's 60% ready for the job, I think you should bet on that person. That's what we believe in. That's what we try to do. We believe that there is a spiral progression, career progression that we have, and we talk about it very openly to people. We make sure that people are exploring something different every 24 months. 36 months, anyway, they should be out of the job, doing something else. So you have to bet on some of those people, and you will see that some of them will be front runners. They may not exactly fit into the pen picture that you have of the manager that you believe, but they will do well.
No, the question, Manoj, is when you have 100,000 such people, and while we can build tools, provide the information, put the competencies in place, how do you actually communicate that that fresher engineer who joins today actually can aspire to be there, and that someone talked about career path? How do we make Accenture a place to come to work?
Yeah. So, a great question. I think the engagement in Accenture starts the moment you accept a role with Accenture. We believe that our responsibility to handhold you in the organization, we have something called as year one in Accenture. So the moment you say, I accept a job in Accenture, there is a mentor and a tool that that would handhold you for one full year. Because like you said, sometimes you get lost in the crowd.
Sure.
That's the person who will tell you, besides, of course, what is required from your mandatory courses, your mandatory trainings, how you take care of administrative stuff. That is the person who will be your career counselor and guide for year one to tell that this is your career, this is your start point, and this is what you take from here. The tool is, yes, it tells you various things in terms of competency. There are career stories there. So if I want to become a technical architect tomorrow, there are career stories there where a technical architect who would have made that journey actually has a recorded version of how he or she has done it. Sure. So that's one. The second piece is around how each of the leaders in your organization walk that talk. Mm-hmm. So if I look at my leaders, whether it's in business or HR, they translate that or talk about this. There is something called as an open scheduling system that we have where every job which is open, no matter which part of Accenture, whether globally or locally, is posted there. So you can always, once you have met some of the minimum criteria and have looked at what competencies require, you could apply. So a lot of these decisions are decisions of choice.
Sure.
So hence managing, part of that is very easy. The other thing that we do is every 6 months diligently for the critical roles and the important roles in the organization, we do a succession plan amongst the leaders. We make sure that there are 2 or 3 levels of successors available for each jobs. Some ready now, some may be ready after 12 months and after 24 months. And we have seen that really happens. There are a lot of transition Accenture goes through every couple of years. Sure. Amitabh would agree to that. And interesting piece is most of these transitions have been very, very noiseless because of the succession planning exercise that happens. We use the Global Careers Program very well to give experience to our people to move. We are very flexible for somebody in HR to move into recruitment, somebody in recruitment to move into mobility program, from mobility program to move into, like I said, if somebody is 60% there, we are willing to experiment and give that opportunity. So some of it, or I would say most of it, is very self-directed using the tool. Sure. Some of it is processed and structured and enabled by the leaders.
Great. Just a follow-up question on that. I'm sure with 100,000 people, you have at least 50% of them below 30 years. And there have been several questions about youngsters not wanting to spend enough time, wanting to look at the next possible salary hike, keep moving. I like to do an assignment basis job. I like to do a project based job, and then I move on. How do you take feedback from employees, young employees, for structuring your plans, your strategy from HR? Yeah. What's the sort of listening that you do with young, especially young workforce?
Yeah. So I think, as rightly said, this is a very critical paradigm. 3 generations of workforce, at least in our paradigm, is working together in the industry. And interestingly, the generation on top figures out and says, this is when we were in that paradigm at the base of the pyramid, this was the world that we know. A world which was about staying in that job for 6 years, developing skills by experience. And that's a different paradigm which is getting challenged by the workforce. So there are a couple of things that we do. One is, of course, we enable reverse mentoring. We believe that the workforce on top, before they form guidelines, need to understand the changing paradigms below. So all the leaders are allocated a young entrant into the workforce, somebody who's 2 years into Accenture. And reverse mentoring happens where the person is actually learning to say what it is. We take pride that we are a listening organization, and I'll tell you how we do. We use technology as one of the tools to listen. We have something called as Accenture Live, which is a platform where people interact with leaders. And this is the leaders at highest level, global leaders, and suggest to say these are areas. Of course, there are topics to say this is what we want to understand. So what do you think about it? It's basically crowdsourcing and using a platform to crowdsource what you want to know. The other piece that we do is we try to see whenever a program is delivered, or whenever a guideline is put in, or whenever something is put in the organization, there is a equal representation from the employees. So if you want to say, we want to reorg the cafeteria, we make sure that there is an employee focus group which works on that. If we want to say we want to change some of these things, we make sure that there are employee work groups who are looking at that and coming up with solution. The other thing that we do very well is, everybody looks at this engagement index once a year. And everybody looks at it, and the results come in. And we realize that, when you're a larger organization, the results come in after 3 months. Then you try to have various cuts and analyze which part went wrong where. And by the time you've analyzed and started doing something about it, the next survey comes in. Yeah. So we challenged ourselves to say, how can you make it happen real time? So there are very simplistic things of doing it. One of the very simplistic things that we do is, as the employee comes into the workplace, there is a screensaver which has 3 different types of smileys. A smiling one to say, I'm feeling great, and a worse one to say, I'm feeling very down. So there are 3 or 4 categories. I'm forgetting the categories, but 4 smileys. And as the employee walks into the office and starts his or her machine, they just click on one. So when the project lead is walking into the office and going for his first team meeting or a debrief, he or she knows that this is the mood on the floor. So that's a mood indicator. We have a tool called as sentiment analytics. What we do is, there's a lot of stuff your employees, I'm sure, writes on Glassdoor, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other sites. And of course, some of us have our own internal sites where people write things about you. Some of them are not very nice. We don't want to share them publicly. But what we do at Accenture is, we know these are 5 things which are important to us from an engagement standpoint. Sentiment analytics, every 6 months, the tool runs scans internal sites as well as the external sites on what has been written on those 5 things. And it gives back to the organization to say, these are what your employees are saying. So what we try to do is listen more compactly, listen in using different mediums and tools, and so that we are able to make changes pretty quickly, rather than waiting for another year of an engagement survey to come in.
Yeah, I'm going to do a mood testing session now. Yeah? I want to see the sentiment here. How are we guys doing? If it is smiley, put up your hand. That's not bad at all. Let's move on.